Doves are a rock band from Manchester, England. They were formed in 1998, broke up again in 2010, reformed again in 2018, and are still going at the time of recording. Actually, they were some of them were operating as a band called Sub from 1991 to 1998. So they kind of came out of the ashes of Sub. They have recorded 5 albums so far. Hi, my name's Dan. So this is the first album by Doves, and it's my second time reviewing it. So I'm just going to give you a very quick potted history of my reviewing. I haven't kind of burst onto the scene just out of nowhere. I guess similar to Doves, who used to be Sub before they were Doves. I have kind of previous history. So I live in a town outside a city. I work in the city and live in the town, and it's about half an hour in each direction. And for a long time, I listened to the radio, and I got really fed up with modern pop music, and so started to listen to albums. Loaded them on a little. I used at that point was a USB stick, and listened to albums in the car, and then for some reason decided that I was going to start exploring music that I hadn't heard before and doing reviews. And I started by doing prog rock, which is kind of my home stamping ground in terms of music. And so for probably about a couple of years, I can't remember exactly, I was doing that and I was reviewing the albums on Facebook. And so it was only seen by my Facebook friends, and occasionally somebody would make a comment. I had the feeling that I was potentially annoying all my Facebook friends with this, but I did it anyway. That came to a natural end after I reviewed my way through a list that I'd set up for myself, and I turned those reviews into a PDF. I call it a virtual coffee table book. Then I decided I want to go mainstream, so I looked for a list of albums, hoping to find an amalgamated list, a bit like Metacritic, of the greatest albums of all time. However, Metacritic itself would have been perfect if it wasn't for the fact that it only works for albums from Metacritic onwards, from the inception of Metacritic. So I took a few lists myself and created my own amalgamated list and created a list of the 1,000, what I thought arguably would be the 1,000 greatest albums of all time. It wasn't, it was an okay list. It had some good stuff on it, and I was about 400 through when I discovered this list. So I should have said I was reviewing on a blog. I decided to go more public. Actually, it became less public on my blog. I had about 4 or 5 people who were following the blog and reading my reviews, and it was very pleasant. Um, Meanwhile, for other reasons, I'd started doing YouTube videos for work and things like that, mostly because of lockdown, actually. Um, so when I found the Acclaimed music list of the 3,000 greatest albums of all time, I thought, this is the list that I wish I'd had to start off with. Right, I'm going to start again, and I'm going to do it in video, and I'm going to do it on YouTube. So that's what happened. So in the middle section, which was the ones on the blog from this list I created, this is a long preamble for a review. I'm sorry about that. I reviewed this album then. I don't particularly remember listening to it then because it's a few years ago. I came up with pretty much the same sort of conclusions as I'm doing this time. I'm not just rolling out the review again. I occasionally have done that when it's absolutely spot on to what I feel. So, sorry about all that. Let's actually get on with this review. I'm going to call this uh, neo-psych rock. So, for some reason, the Coldplay keep coming to mind, and Coldplay are in my head as being the archetypal band who came after Britpop and became quite serious rock, and tended to be quite melancholy, etc. Now, when I looked up what genre Coldplay were just a few minutes ago, it said post Britpop as one of the things. I thought, actually, that's a really good term, post Britpop. And I feel like this is similarly post Britpop, but psychedelic, neo-psych, and definitely rock comes in here as well. So it comes after Britpop, and during Britpop there was a kind of surge of interest in psychedelic stuff. So quite a bit of what's been lumped in as Britpop is probably should become neo-psych or neo-psychedelic. And this has got strong psychedelic elements in it, mostly because it's quite spacey. It's got some quite space rock sounds to it. It's got effects that give it spacey feels, sometimes on the vocals. It often uses guitars rather than keyboards and other kind of synthy kind of sounds, which is where I kind of feeling leaning towards Coldplay. I want to mention Elbow as well. I feel like that there were several bands around at the time that sounded quite similar to Coldplay, but I don't want to name them because I'm probably going to get them wrong and not remember who they were. The other, equally, I feel like before this, during Britpop, there were some bands that were very kind of neo-psych, and again, I can't kind of pull names out of my head and be sure that I'm accurately right on those. Um, it so it's got this kind of. I'm definitely feeling long-winded today. It's got this kind of mixture of the neo-psych and this move into the kind of more melancholic, serious rock, um, bound up together. It they're from Manchester, and it doesn't feel like a Manchester band. It's maybe because my kind of impression of Manchester bands is from, obviously from the Smiths, but then Oasis and other bands like that. And it's not got the Manchester feel, and it also has not got the kind of Oasis feel. And it's the reason for it is it's less assuming. It doesn't put itself forwards as much. One of the things about the Manchester stuff is it's often quite kind of ballsy and in your face, and this really isn't. It's more. I want to say laid back. It's not that none of the Manchester stuff is mellow. It's just this has a different kind of mellowness to it. As I say, it's quite spacey, and it's got this melancholic feel. I feel like it's actually all about the music and the feel. It's quite expansive without feeling epic, which is good. I couldn't tell you what the songs were about. I didn't really pick up on the lyrics, um, and that's partly why I think I'm going to say I feel like it's more about the music and the feel that they're producing. I quite enjoyed it. In terms of other stuff that came around in alt rock, or certainly with indie rock, I have this complaint against indie rock, particularly British indie rock, is that a lot of it's quite drenched in a kind of background of overdriven guitar, where they kind of, and it's just constant sound. I call it the curtain. It's like the backing curtain of the guitar, and this isn't like that. So, in terms of some other things that might have been their contemporaries at the time, it stood out to me as being better, as something that I quite enjoyed. So, quite like this. Not, kind of jumping up and down and shouting from the rooftops, kind of enjoying, just kind of, yeah, that's all right, that is kind of enjoyment. I feel like maybe it would be a grower as well, so I think it would reward several listens to it. I've given it a couple this time. I've listened to a couple of times before, obviously. So anyway, I've got to come to an end. This is what I think of this album has now completely been dealt with. Please tell me what you think of this album. Leave me a comment. And that's it from me for now.